Do you believe in the one? Today we're going to look at the idea of the one and also what it means to go from finding the one to choosing the one to becoming the one. What is the one? Well, it really depends on who you ask, but if we go to pop culture as our starting point, it's usually synonymous with the idea of a soulmate. You know, the person that you're meant to spend the rest of your life with, the person that you're destined to actually meet. And in movies we see that all the time. We see that one person looking for that other person to kind of fulfill them or to kind of make them whole. And when we see that in pop culture, it actually kind of makes us think that that's kind of reality. But as we know, pop culture and movies actually don't really tell us the truth all the time. So instead, when we turn to a source that's more reliable than movies like the Bible, what we realize is that this idea of soulmates and this idea of being destined for someone else actually is false. If we look at the life of Apostle Paul and even the life of Jesus himself, we realize that they were single their entire lives. If we believe that not everyone is being called to marriage, then actually it debunks the whole idea that there is the one out there for every single person. Instead, I believe that God actually gives us a choice in choosing our life partner, and we actually see that in Genesis 24 in Rebecca's response. In Genesis 24, we see that Abraham sends out his servant to find a wife for his son Isaac. And even though he gives him a criteria, what we actually see is that when Rebecca is asked to go with the servant, she is given a choice. In verse 57 it says, "They said, 'Let us call the young woman and ask her.' And they called Rebecca and said to her, 'Will you go with this man?' And she said, 'I will go.'" And even though Rebecca ended up choosing Isaac because she ended up going with the servant, we know that if she hadn't gone, God would still have provided another spouse for Isaac. Maybe not necessarily Rebecca, but someone else, because we know that God had promised Abraham that he would have many descendants through his son Isaac. So what I believe is that someone becomes the one, not because we're destined to be with them or because they're our soulmate, but because we actually choose them. The moment that we say, "I do" in marriage, the moment that we make that covenant with them, they become our one. Now the question now shifts from finding the one to actually choosing the one. How do we choose well? Well, my pastor actually taught me a framework which is called the 3 C's on how to choose a partner well. So imagine 3 concentric circles. You have the outer, the middle, and the inner layer. That's where we get our 3 C's. So when we talk about the first C, which is the outer layer, we talk about chemistry. And that's essentially just the idea of being able to connect with someone and to kind of just vibe off them and have a good conversation with them. The next C that we want to look for is character, which is the middle layer. Essentially character, we want to find someone who is Christ-like, who is godly, who is trustworthy, who's kind, who's gracious, all these things that encompass what Jesus was like essentially. And often character is something that is actually shown and revealed over time. When we first meet someone, often they'll put up a front, they'll put on their best behavior, but we actually get to see true character over time. And this reminds me of a piece of advice that I heard: to date patterns over potential. To not date based on someone's potential character and what you hope them to be in a few years, but to actually date them based on what they have shown in terms of their character over time. And the last C is the one that's right in the center, which is the most important, which is core. What are their core convictions? What's their mission and their purpose in life? Where are they running towards? If you're a Christian, you're looking for someone with a kingdom mindset, someone who has a surrendered life, who is looking to evangelize and fulfill the Great Commission essentially. And if you're both running in the same direction, you're able to spur each other on in God's calling over your life. But even though it's really important in knowing how to choose someone wisely, it's even more important to understand who we are becoming. Jeff Bethke says it really well. He says, "It's not about finding the one, it's about preparing yourself to be the one." And how do we do that? Well, if I paraphrase what Jonathan Pokluda says, he says, "Become the one you're looking for is looking for." So if we look back at the 3 C's that we just looked at, we can actually work on our character and our core in the meantime before we even choose someone. If we're looking for someone with a character who is kind and servant-hearted, then we ourselves should be going into the mission field. We ourselves should be going into our local ministries and helping those who actually need a helping hand. And if we're looking for someone with the conviction of fulfilling God's call on their life, then we ourselves should actually have an understanding of what God's direction is for our life before we even find that person. And when we choose someone who is aligned with us in these core things, then we're able to find someone who is equally yoked. In 2 Corinthians 6:14 it says, "Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness?" When we want to find someone who is equally yoked, it doesn't just mean finding someone who labels themselves as a Christian or who just says they're a Christian, but we're actually looking for someone who actually practices out their faith and who is living a surrendered life. So what are your thoughts on the one? Comment it down below. Do you think that we're each destined to have a soulmate, or do you believe that God gives us the choice to pick? And more importantly, how are you becoming the one you're looking for is looking for? If you enjoyed this content, make sure that you like the video and also subscribe to Salt's YouTube channel for more videos on singleness, dating, and relationships.